Welcome to the Live Fit Listens podcast, a safe space of growth, personal development, and overall wellness with your host, Olivia Catania. Diving into the realms of all things health, conscious living, mental expansion, and much more, this podcast is designed to help you evolve into your best self and live fit. Let's get into the show. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Live Fit Listens podcast, guys. 3 weeks in a row. I feel like, unfortunately, I've reset the bar so low now so that every consecutive podcast, I'm going to be like, guys, it's a new record. But anyways, I'm celebrating my little bout of consistency right now. It really just got to a point where it was so not a part of my routine anymore that I literally would just genuinely forget to record something. And then Wednesday would come and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like today's supposed to be a podcast day. And then I would just be like, okay, I'll do it next week. And I didn't. So anyway, I've been really making a point to write it down in my journal and just spending more time brainstorming for the podcast. And here we are. So I'm just feeling good. Week number 3 in a row. I'm proud of us. Okay. I hope everyone is doing very well. Happy February. I honestly have quite a bit of traveling this month, so I know this one is just going to fly by. I'm going to Canada for a week for a ski trip, and then I'm also going to Hawaii for a week to see Rachel. I'm super excited. But so, with February already being a short month and me being gone for 2 of those 4 weeks, I just know it's going to fly by. So with that being said, I'm going to try to pre-record some episodes while I'm gone, but just in case, putting that out there, I am going to be traveling a bit. So if I miss a week or 2 this month, that is going to be why. But moving into my gratitude for this episode, I guess I have one thing to say. I guess just the past few episodes when I've been thinking about what I want to write down, it sounds so cliche and like a cop out, but it's just like, I feel grateful for so many things in my life that when I go to that section in my outline, I'm like everything, like I'm just grateful for everything. But I guess a good one and a more applicable one for right now would be the travel that I have lined up for this month. Canada is a new country for me, so I'm super excited for that. And I haven't gone on a ski trip with my family in like years and years and years. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm always grateful to go to Hawaii. So I'm so grateful to be in the position, just to have the freedom in so many different aspects to be able to go on these trips. So that's actually what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my trips that I have coming up this month. So for this episode, I wanted to talk about 10 different ways to help you continue evolving and continue on like your growth journey. And this idea honestly came about when I was in the shower because I kind of was just thinking about how much I feel like I've really changed over the past few years and like since my early 20s. And I feel like I think I talked about this in my podcast episode where I said I was like having a breakdown, a quarter life crisis. And I said how I just felt so different from my earlier self, like in my early 20s. And when I got into my early 20s, I thought that was just like kind of how I felt like I entered adulthood. And that's like what adulthood was going to be for the rest of my life, which was super naive. And I just wasn't really anticipating how much I was still going to be shifting and changing. I felt like I really had stepped into my adult form, whatever I thought that meant at the time. But anyways, I just was looking back and I was like, wow, I really still have shifted and evolved so much. And I really do feel so much more like evolved in a different way and just more mature, which I think is obviously totally normal. But it also had me thinking how I still have been intentional with continuing on my growth journey and my expansive journey. And I have talked to some people where they felt like, they're like, I just don't know what it is, but I just don't feel like I'm growing anymore. And I just don't feel like I have evolved, which I don't always think is true, like black and white in that sense, because even just experiencing life has tiny doses of evolution in it, no matter how big and small. So even if you completely feel like you're at a standstill, like, know that is not necessarily the truth. But I do think there is truth in really living with the intention to continue on an evolutionary journey. And I'm someone who really values that. That's just kind of in my personality. That's in my like soul pull and craving. And I know that a lot of you guys have similar mindsets to me on here who listen. So I figured this would be a good little episode to share 10 different things and tips and things that I do to help ensure that I'm continuing on in my growth journey. Because for me, I'm someone who, if I really don't feel like I'm growing or at least like having the intention or doing something on my end to keep going on that journey, I feel super unfulfilled and I feel super suffocated. Like I almost find so much comfort in that expansive energy. Like it feels like relieving. It feels like freedom. it just feels expansive. So I'm just someone who really values that. And I know that there's going to be people listening as well who do value that as well. Or I know there's also going to be people listening who are kind of feeling stuck and may be able to receive some ounce of inspiration from these 10 different tips and ways that I have to share with you today. So the first and foremost thing that I have is to first adopt a growth mindset. And I think this is just step one, because I do think there are some people out there, and especially something I've learned as I've gotten older and I've gotten more so into adulthood and have just spoken to more people, like there just are some people who aren't expansive in terms of their mindset, in terms of their headspace, even in terms of their vision for their life. Like some people just don't want to expand or like don't have these crazy big goals or like have any sort of pull for personal development and all that sort of stuff. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But there also are some people who are expansive and who do like to continue evolving and who do like to work on themselves and continue to be better and strive to be their best self. And so it really just comes down to having that awareness and simply setting the intention of who you want to be and what you want out of life. If you have this feeling that you think you're meant for something more, or you're not feeling satisfied with what you have around you, or you just feel like you're meant for more, there's more out there for you, listen to that. That's a soul calling. That's a soul pull that's telling you something. That is your soul knowing that there's still more on its journey. And I'm not even saying more or less in the sense of better or worse or like trying to have a hierarchy ranking. I'm just using it in the sense of like perspective sake here of just like if your soul has a yearning for just more expansion, if you want to go travel, if you have these big career goals, if you just want to be a more evolved person, if you want to go deeper into your spirituality or mindset, anything, like listen to those calls. Those are nudges for a reason, and they're meant for you and they're aligned for you. So pay attention to those. Have the awareness to know that if you're wanting to be someone of growth, if you want to actually continue evolving and continue on the journey towards your best self, you need to first start with claiming and declaring the mindset in order to get you there. A growth mindset to me is kind of just like setting the foundation of understanding like, okay, like this is what I need to start with. And then everything else is going to tack on top of that. Like I feel like all the 9 other things I'm going to share with you here really build off of having that growth mindset first so that you have that foundation, like I'm saying, and can also kind of almost feel safe moving forward in the other tips that I have, because you're in the proper headspace to continue going forward. You know what I mean? Like I feel like getting in a growth mindset is getting into the correct lane or tuning into the correct radio station and then kind of going from there and following through on that journey. So in case you are unaware, a growth mindset is basically just the intention and the continuous choice to take the expansive route, to take the path of growth and to take the path of moving forward. It's so easy in life just to get comfortable, to get stagnant, to get complacent, to settle. And believe it or not, it doesn't seem like it because those are just comfortable options and they're still very happy options that people are happy and fulfilled with. But kind of the slippery slope in that other side is that it can really turn into a scarcity mindset really quickly, where people stay in those environments just simply because they don't think that they're meant for more, or they don't think that anything more is out there for them, or they don't think they're capable of achieving more, whatever that looks like in career and home and hobbies and travel and relationships, whatever it is. So you really want to make sure that you're claiming that growth mindset first and understanding that the sky is the limit for you. My dad always says, shoot for the stars, land on the moon, essentially saying, there's always going to be some error, but as long as you keep your sights set high, you're at least going to land pretty darn close if that's what you're aiming for. So growth mindset is huge. Start with that, claim that, and understand that that's the person that you're going to be. Call that in, align with that, and claim that for who you are and how your brain operates. Number 2 is to stay curious. This I think is a really huge one. And I think this is what I attribute like quite a bit of my growth for. And I remember in past years, people would ask like how I come up with podcast episodes and things like that. I'm a very curious person in my own brain. I ask myself a lot of questions, and that has led me to a lot of like revelations and just being able to dig deeper into things. And this I think has just played a huge role in my own growth personally and continues to do so because it helps me to continue to peel back the layers and things and keep expanding, keep going deeper, keep just getting more into it. And I feel like people will stop their thinking at a shallow point. Again, not in an insultive way, just speaking as a metaphor here. They'll keep their thoughts more so at a shallow level, and they just will accept it at that face value answer. But I'm definitely someone who will just continue to ask myself, I will play the why game. This goes towards me being like, okay, why am I scared to do this one thing? And I say, oh, well, it's because I feel this way. And then I will ask myself, why do you feel that way? And then I'll dig even deeper and deeper. And then I'll ask myself, why, where do I think that initial feeling came from? Or what experience do I feel like brought me to have that conclusion about things? Whatever it is, again, this can apply to so many different areas in life, but staying curious is so important, because the moment that you stop being curious, the moment you stop asking questions, and the moment you just take things at face value all the time and don't question anything, you stop thinking for yourself and you stop the growth process. It's basically like stopping a moving stream. The water will just go still in a pond. That's kind of how I'm like viewing it. So staying curious and asking questions allows the water to continue moving, allows space for growth, allows space for evolution, and allows things for continue to shift and flow in a way that creates space for newness, which is always the point here. So I think staying curious and asking yourself questions, I think is something that's super, super underrated. And I think that we don't realize how many answers we hold within ourselves, and we go to external resources, which still has its place. I'm going to get into that, but we also there's still validity in asking ourselves questions and going inwards. And this is a great opportunity to really tap into your intuition and your own soul's knowing by asking yourself questions and like really working yourself through things. And I think there's so many amazing things about resources. Like, I do believe in therapy. I believe in all these things. I believe in going to people for advice, but you'll be amazed at how much you can kind of uncover just from digging a little deeper with yourself and continuing to ask yourself questions and guiding yourself through just a deeper thought process, and not being afraid to dive into topics a little bit deeper, asking yourself hard questions and really extracting things and dissecting them and seeing what's actually going on here, what's the bigger picture, and just going deeper. Number 3 I have is to continue learning. This is pretty self-explanatory. I'm sure, not reinventing the wheel here, but continuing your education. This doesn't mean you have to go back to school or whatever it is, but just continuing your education, whether it's even on social media or looking up YouTube videos or reading articles or getting a certification in something or taking a course. Like, expanding your learning and your knowledge not only helps your own brain capacity and your brain power and allowing, just becoming smarter to be able to work yourself through different things mentally, but also just expanding your tool set, your skill set, right? Like, I always say that, emotional intelligence and all these things and personal development, it's really all just about learning tools to help yourself along the way continue to evolve. It's kind of like if I'm in Utah and I want to drive to New York, how can I get there if I don't have a functioning vehicle? It's like I need to learn how a car functions, how I can fix the car, how to drive the car so that I can actually get it from point A to point B. And that's kind of what learning does here. It helps to expand your skill set. It helps to expand your knowledge so that you can actually apply it and use it to your advantage, and just continue to expand and learn new ideas and learn new tools for yourself, learn new systems to continue to figure out what works for you, what building blocks works for you, and keep scaling up from there. Next one I have, which I think is also underrated, number 4, is to stay open-minded. But specifically what I mean here is with others' viewpoints and opinions and belief systems. Of course, I'm someone who really sees all sides to things, which I love that. And I think it's important because I think it keeps things balanced. And a lot of things in life are not black and white. It's an and. So with this, I also do believe in staying rooted in your own beliefs and your opinions and your viewpoints and standing true in that and not necessarily getting easily swayed and holding your frame. So I'm not necessarily saying that you need to throw out all your viewpoints, but I think it's so important to get around people, get in rooms with people who have different opinions than you, and at least hear them out completely unbiasedly. I feel like so many people, when they're around someone who has a different viewpoint than them, they automatically are taking it as an attack and as if someone needs to be right and wrong in the situation, when that's really not the point at all. The point is just to simply gain exposure to other people's thought processes and have that as perspective and be able to see things from a higher viewpoint, essentially. And I guess I really just realized there's a lot of things that I have changed my viewpoint on since my early 20s to now at 25 years old. And there were things that I never thought that I would disagree with English. Oh my God, I just malfunctioned. There are things that I never thought I would ever change my viewpoints on in my early 20s. I thought that was just how I was going to feel forever. And there were just very much so like foundational things and belief systems that I held. And at first I was like I was rejecting a lot of these new opinions because I was like, there's no way. But I actually gave it the light of day, and I actually like pondered it, and I actually asked questions, and I was open-hearted and open-minded in the face of this new information. And it actually led me to seeing more truth that I was blind to in the past. So it's just like, again, it is always going to be a balance of staying true in your own truth and your beliefs, but also never be closed off to other people. And it's honestly something I worry about with people as you get older. Like, I understand why older people are just so stubborn in their viewpoints because there's just been so much time at that point. But I really would love to take an oath to like always try to be open-minded. And even no matter how much I feel like I know certain beliefs, like at least hear other people out and see if things have shifted and see if, there's any sort of relatability or resonance there that may not have been there previously. So that's like a huge one. And unfortunately, I feel like in our society right now, a lot of people aren't open-minded, and it's been such like just like a right and wrong battle. And again, I really don't think that's like what it needs to be about. I think staying open-minded allows you to continue learning. It allows you also to have empathy and compassion for other people because you can understand their viewpoints or at least see where they're coming from. It allows you to be more fair and level-headed. That's the word I'm looking for. Fair and level-headed. And I just think it's really important because if you're not careful, you're just going to end up in an echo chamber or just stay with the same stimulus around you forever. And it's like you can't really grow if you're never in a new environment. So it's kind of like in that regard, this is like almost brain gym is how I'm seeing it. It's like if I were to do the same workout all the time, no new weights, no new sets, no new reps, same exact thing, never pushing myself, never challenging myself, I'm never going to like grow and change. I'm just going to stay the exact same. So staying open-minded is huge. We really need to swallow our pride. It has nothing to do with ego, with our worth, with nothing. If we can actually strip things away and look at things objectively and give people the light of day and the time of day, I think we would be able to connect a lot better with other people and just have our own beliefs challenged. Like this could be in anything. Like I'm also talking about like nutrition, career paths, like so many things. Like I just feel like we really can benefit a lot from understanding other people and taking time to put ourselves in different people's shoes, because I think that change in perspective teaches us a lot. Even at the face of like travel, like when I go to new places, I'm seeing things in different ways. I'm hearing people's opinions and viewpoints and ways of life in different ways. And that in and of itself helps me grow and expand because I'm gaining awareness to something I didn't even know existed before. And that in and of itself inherently yields growth. Number 5, maybe a little biased. No, I'm kidding. But it's to listen to podcasts, but also like kind of with this, I mean everything of just like mentorship, coaches, etc. And I honestly listen, I've been listening to the self-help personal development podcast since 2020. And I've been hearing people say like, join this course, find mentors, all this stuff for years. And I was just like, there was times where I felt pulled to do them, but I never really felt like they were like a need or... My phone just dropped in case you heard that. I never felt like there were like a need or whatnot or whatever. I'm looking back, it probably just wasn't the right time for me, but I never really understood the hype, I guess, if you will. And last year I joined my first course from a podcaster that I love her work and love her teachings. And I'm like, okay, I get it now. Like it made a difference. Like it really, really did help me and it did expand me. I'm not saying you need to go drop thousands of dollars on a course or on a mentor. I'm really not. That's also why my number one point here is podcasts. But like just listen to people who you want to be like, whose life you want to emulate, or someone who's like an inspiration to you. Like I think it's so important to continue to have people to look up to. There's so many quotes about saying show me your 5 friends and I'll show you what your life will be like, or like you are accumulation of the 5 closest people in your life, whatever. Like it matters who you are bouncing your ideas off of and what you're surrounding yourself with. And I have really found that podcasts are that thing for me, which is what totally inspired me to start this podcast as well. Like it's not always easy to find, especially in your young 20s, to find people who are also committed to improving themselves and success and betterment. And it's just not always easy to completely shift your whole entire social circle. So getting kind of in those conversations via podcasts, interviews, that sort of thing has helped me absolutely tremendously. I've learned so much from podcasts and just listening to successful people or people who I would love to emulate or people who inspire me or people who have similar lives that I'm striving for, and just really listening to them, how they speak, what their mindset is, how they move, how they act, and really trying to implement that into my life. Like I'm telling you, that has been one of the main things of my growth over the past 5 years for sure, especially just like in terms of career and all of that. And even just like reading books goes into this lane too. Like I also was very heavy on reading self-help books as well. Those more so helped with like my mindset kind of and spirituality and just having a better mindset with things. But anything like that, podcasts, books, mentorship figures, doing courses, things like that, where you're just like getting in rooms and bubbles with inspiring speech, with uplifting messages, with just good examples that you want to emulate, because I'm telling you, it impacts us in ways that we don't even realize all the time. And I was even thinking about that too when I went on a walk the other day, like how much I guess it was just like a small thing in my day all the time of like, oh, I just go on a walk and throw on a podcast, right? Like it just kind of seemed so easy and it just became such a part of my routine. And it hit me of like, oh my gosh, the amount of just like me going for a 30-minute to an hour walk, however many days a week over the past 5 years, and having that 30 minutes to an hour, having that be of some sort of like inspiring personal development podcast. Imagine how much information and how much I've improved just from that like accumulation of however much time that was over the past 5 years of spending time improving myself listening to a podcast. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it seemed like such a small thing that I didn't even realize had such a huge impact. And then I was reflecting, I was like, oh my gosh, like this little 30 minutes a day that I do this over the course of 5 years is probably giving me so much information and so many tools that I don't even realize. And it's just crazy, the compounding effect of things. So I promise you, it goes such a long way, even just in small doses when you're driving to work, going back from the gym, whatever it is, just chuck on a podcast, chuck on an audiobook, throw on the audio of a course that you're in. Those little micro doses of just like getting in these rooms and improving your mindset just goes so far. I feel so passionate about that. Okay, number 6, this is also a huge, every time I'm like, this is a huge one. Number 6 is to get uncomfortable, okay? Or essentially try new things. I think when we are uncomfortable, inevitably growth is with that. Just because we're in a territory we've never been, we're feeling things we've never felt, we're experiencing things we've never have before. And like inherently when you're doing something new, you're in a new space. You have to figure out how to stay afloat. And with that, you are learning new things. At the very least, even just gaining a new experience to me is growth. Again, just because you're putting yourself in an environment you've never been in, you've never seen yourself in that way before, you've never had to move in that way, you're absorbing so many new pieces of information, even if it's just simply a new environment. So getting uncomfortable, I think, is big, and it has also contributed for my growth as well. Like, for me, that looked like me going on month-long trips in other places completely alone, because first of all, I was in a new places where they spoke different languages at times, where there was completely new culture. I was also completely alone, so I had no kind of like emotional support in that way. I couldn't like hide behind someone. I didn't have a personal little someone of comfort with me all the time, and I had to get to know a new version of me in this new environment every time, and try to learn the way of the land and go through the process from being uncomfortable to becoming comfortable again. And I really do think over the past few years that has really accumulated and compounded into some substantial growth. If we're always feeling comfortable, it's just, we're never giving ourselves the reason to grow, right? And there's like another perfect saying that says like growth happens at the end of your comfort zone. It's a quote for a reason. So this doesn't have to look like you moving to a new place completely alone. That's why I said even trying new things, like trying a new class or trying like a new sport or trying to go talk to someone new at the coffee shop or whatever it is, just getting yourself in new environments, doing things that make you feel uncomfortable. I think does wonders for our brain, does wonders for our confidence, does wonders for our courage, and does wonders for our growth inevitably. So do more things to get you uncomfortable, especially in today's day and age. Everything is designed for us to be comfortable all the time. And to be honest, I think that is a downfall of our society at the moment, is that everyone thinks being uncomfortable is a problem and is some sense of trauma, or is some like everyone gets fight or flight when they're uncomfortable. And if you could really learn to find ease in that, not necessarily ease, but find peace and contentment and steadiness in the face of uncomfortability, like that is truly a superpower in today's day and age. And you are going to be so resilient and will be able to survive anywhere. I think it's super important to learn how to be calm in the face of uncomfortability. Number 7, continue setting goals in order to keep evolving higher. Okay, this is honestly something my dad always would tell me, like, it's amazing when we celebrate goals. When we hit them, we want to celebrate them. We want to acknowledge them. Great, we love it. But we can't ever stop there. My dad also always says to reinvent yourself every 10 years. So basically the point is just saying, like, when you hit your goal, amazing, awesome, let's celebrate it, let's relish in it, let's not rush it. But then we also need to move the needle again, because that's what's going to continue to keep us striving to keep climbing the ladder. And that inherently is where there's growth, expansion, evolution, all the things. So you want to do what you can to continue to keep setting higher goals. This is also going to give you the chance to shift and pivot and lean into new avenues and new routes. And that's going to keep you to evolving higher. I think people can get really complacent with things, especially they're like, oh, this is good enough, I did it, done. Which, again, other counter argument here is like, we want to be grateful for what we have, right? We don't always kind of want to be constantly moving the needle and never feeling content or ever feeling good enough. So hence why I'm saying it's important to acknowledge your wins, really feel them, really feel grateful for them, appreciate them, recognize them, and then let's move the needle and keep going. That's what's really has also allowed me to continue to keep climbing up this metaphorical ladder and just continue on my expansion journey and continue moving forward. Especially for the people who are goal-oriented like myself, it's my goals that I have are like my North Star. They're what give me direction. They're what keep me going. And so if I don't continuously update them when it's time to update them, I would be lost and complacent and just be super steady looking around like, what do I do next? So my goals are like my North Star. They give me that direction, and they're kind of like that gravitational pull to continue to lift me up and rise to meet them. Number 8 is to spend time with yourself. I don't think anyone's surprised that I'm pulling this one out, right? I am such an advocate of spending time with yourself. I'm saying this as like an introvert, an introspective person, but it's true. I think spending time with yourself is incredible for so many different reasons. First of all, it is a superpower, just being able to do that in and of itself. You'd be so surprised at how many people are so uncomfortable with spending time with themselves, which I guess this is perfect. We're combining number 6 and number 8. You can try to get uncomfortable by spending time with yourself, but it's true. Like, there are so many people who quite literally cannot be alone. They go crazy trying to sit with themselves and spend time with themselves. And I completely understand why. Like, we're in this world of hustle and bustle all the time. Things are constantly moving. Anxiety's at an all-time high. There's so many distractions going on all the time. And we're not always taught to sit still with ourselves and find safety and security with that. And to be honest, like, sometimes being in our own mind is a very scary place. And, that takes being incredibly honest with yourself. That's kind of another one I should put down, is being honest with yourself. I think that's another huge one. I think a lot of people lie to themselves more than they realize it. And they're not really honest with themselves of where they actually are or what they really need or what they're actually doing. And it leads to this kind of misalignment because they're not living in truth and knowing what's actually right in front of them. So that's kind of another one, is like being honest with yourself as well, of really knowing what's actually going on within yourself. But I think spending time with yourself is step 1 to being able to be honest with yourself. A lot of people live a lie and they don't even realize that they're living a lie. They don't even realize that they're skewing things in their own brain, or that they're not seeing things clearly, or that they're not really following through and they think in the way that they think they are, etc. So spending time with yourself, going back to that one, I think it's just so important to quiet your mind. I'm a huge believer in intuition, in following your own inner compass. And there's so many decisions in life where other people cannot make them for you. Finding clarity in those decisions comes from you turning inward and listening to your own heart, listening to your own soul, listening to your own gut and your own pulls and your own nudges. And I think so many people live the life of others based on all these people, other people's expectations, of society's expectations. And before they know it, they're like, I'm not even living a life that feels like mine. And I think that clarity can really come when you can turn down the noise of everyone else and say, okay, who is Olivia actually? Novel concept. What do I like to do? What do I enjoy? What brings me fulfillment? What actually makes me happy? What are things that I actually want to spend my time doing if I didn't hear one more opinion or judgment from anyone else? Like, those I think are really, really important questions to be asking, especially if you're in your 20s and 30s, to really just figure out who you are, because that's just totally the basis of then being able to live a fulfilling and prosperous life. It's the same thing of like, okay, I need to get to this destination, and you have no even idea of what the destination is. You're like, how are you supposed to make a game plan of how to get there if you don't even know? Or I guess the better way to describe that analogy would be like, let's say I need to go to San Francisco, but I have no idea where I am right now, what my starting point is. It's like, I don't even know how would I create a plan of how to get there if I don't even know where I'm starting from. So that's kind of why it's so important to, the analogy here of just like why it's so important to get to know yourself and spend time with yourself, because that will also give you the space to be able to continue to ask yourself questions and stay curious and dive into learning things and to stay open-minded and to get into podcasts, etc., things like that, to continue setting your goals. Like, you need to spend time with yourself to recheck in with your home base. I kind of also will describe it sometimes as like you are kind of your own team, in the sense of like, if you're about to go play a basketball game, the coach always brings in the team and like does a game plan before they go play the game. It's not like a free for all. And so those like continuous check-ins with yourself, coming back to yourself, are super important in order to go forward and to continue on your expansive journey. I have received so much clarity in spending time with myself. It's allowed me to reflect and go through introspective periods that have been super pivotal in my growth and completely necessary in my growth. Don't get me wrong, being with others is also important, kind of hence why I said number 4, stay open-minded with other people's opinions. It is so important to also be around other people, and there is growth in that. So I don't want to discount that as well, but I just feel like that is more common to be doing that, of being around other people. That's more common than actually spending time with yourself, that I feel like can get so overlooked. So maybe I should do a podcast on that. I just feel like a lot of people really do struggle with spending time with themselves. So maybe that would be like a podcast that I do in the future of just like how to get more comfortable spending time with yourself. Number 9 is to stay devoted to growth. This is basically just me trying to say be consistent in a nice way, in a gentle way. We're gentle parenting over here. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, basically to stay consistent in this. But with that, the caveat is that you also need to understand that it is a flow. Being like, your growth journey is not necessarily something that's always tangible, always logical, always systematic. It's not. That's not how it's going to be. So there's going to be times where you don't feel like you're growing as rapidly as you was previously, which you also need to understand all of those are just simply perceptions, not necessarily the truth. But so it's really just this balance of like doing what you can to keep putting in the action steps and continue to hold this growth mindset, right? To make sure we're continuing moving in that direction, but also just simply recognize it's not always going to be, we're not always going to be flooring the gas pedal to get there. It's always going to be a flow. There's always going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be differences in the rates of your growth and evolution. There's going to be times where you're moving at snail speed or none at all. There's going to be times where you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like a different person than I was a month ago. I've had so many different revelations. So again, we want to stay devoted to this path. We want to hold that growth mindset. We want to continue to take these little action steps that I'm saying in here to help us continue to walk that path. But we need to always recognize it is a flow. Growth is not something that you can control the timing of. It's not something that you can force. It's not something that is necessarily tangible even. Like, it is a soul's journey that is fluid, that is fluctuating, okay? And it really takes grace to realize that, to also then not get discouraged in your journey. So we want to be devoted, but we don't want to force growth, because growth really can't be forced, and it's something that comes on its own time in its own kind of natural way. So with that, number 10 links to that. I want to say that progress is also not linear, is number 10. This is also super important. Again, last year, I felt like I was going so backwards. Okay. I felt like I don't know if I went through my spiritual awakening when I was 22 or what it was, but like 22 to 23, I was like on a launch pad. I felt like I was like, my soul was just like bursting. I had so many just like epiphanies, downloads every day. I felt like I was just expanding. I felt like I was like taking these huge strides in my life. And last year I felt like I was just like, I had lost everything. I felt like super just lost in who I was. I had crazy imposter syndrome. I felt like just not empowered. Like I literally just felt like I had gone backwards. And I was beating myself up because I was like, what happened to you? Like I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore. I felt like I had gone backwards in my journey. And that's kind of when it hit me. I saw this one thing, I think somewhere on social media, obviously. And it was just basically about the concept of spiraling higher. And I love that because if you think of a spiral, or, you think that if you're looking at it from the top down, it looks like you're just going in a circle, like there was things that I was working through last year and still kind of am, where I was like, I already went over this. Like I thought I learned this in freaking 2023 or 2022. Like I thought I learned this lesson. I had this epiphany and I felt like I was just like going in a circle. But then if you look at the spiral from the side, you'll notice that it's actually spiraling upwards towards the sky. So it's like you think you're in your same place from looking at the top down, but from the side, you're actually up like 3 stories. You know what I mean? And so it basically just speaks to the testament of like, you think that you're in the same place or going in a circle, but you're actually evolving and growing. It just doesn't always seem like it. And yes, you may need to meet lessons more than once. That's honestly so normal. So if you're someone listening and you're like, oh my gosh, Liv, dude, like I feel like I've learned this. I've been working through this one thing for years, or I've been working through this one thing. Somehow it finds me once every year. It's like, you need to understand that each time you face this lesson, you're approaching it in a deeper sense. You're going deeper into the lesson. You're implementing it even deeper. And you're not learning it in the same way as you did the first time. And each time you're meeting this lesson, it's an opportunity to apply it even more. It's like the same thing in school. We took one math class. The next year you went to a higher level of math. The third year you went to an even higher level of math. So it's kind of like in that same concept of like, yes, you still might be in math, but now you're learning a whole new level of it. And that's kind of like how I see it. It's like, yes, I feel like I've worked through imposter syndrome before, but I'm going through it now at even a deeper level, at even a more advanced level to really work through it in even a more thorough level. That's kind of why the spiritual people say it's earth school, because it kind of is. It makes so much sense. So that's a huge thing. Like progress is not linear. It is not linear. Oh my gosh, did I say it is linear? I have on here, I'm noticing it says progress is linear. I don't know if I said that in the beginning. Oh no, but progress is not linear is what I meant to say. I hope I didn't misspeak. Anyway, even so, if you think you're at a standstill or if you're going super slow, just know it is all a part of the process. You have to even understand having something come slowly to you. If you feel like you're stuck and stagnant, there in and of itself is growth, because you're learning how to deal with it. You're learning how to be comfortable in it. You're learning how to be patient in that season. And additionally, you're gathering so much experience being in that season that then when you come out of it, you're going to be so relatable to other people. You're going to know how to offer advice to other people. You're going to have relatability and resonance with other people, and that's going to go so far. You're going to be able to have compassion with other people. So I promise you, every single ounce, space, phase, season of life is never to waste. It's never, ever, ever to go to waste. But again, we have to see it, right? Just like in my last episode, I said that obstacles are just simply opportunities, right? In life, they're opportunities for growth. We have to see it as such. If you sit here and think like, damn, I'm in a stuck, stagnant period, like this is it, it's just a waste. Well, that's what it's going to be like. And that's not going to help you ever get out of it, because you're just going to be staying in such a low frequency state with such a poor headspace. You're never going to feel inspired or going to do anything to get out of it. So you have to really remind yourself like, hey, at least in this season, this is going to make a hell of a good story when I come out of this, right? I'm going to be able to relate and be compassionate to other people in a whole new level now, because I'm actually going to be able to understand what they went through, right? It's going to humanize you. It's going to humble you. It's going to ground you. Like these are all amazing characteristics to take with you through life and just to be a more kinder, gentler, compassionate human being. So we have to remember that these slow periods, these periods where you feel like you're going backwards, you're not, because they actually are kind of always contributing to your growth, just in ways that you don't necessarily think that it is. So now I'm kind of like working through this where I want to say actually progress is linear, in the sense of like you are always moving forward. It just doesn't always look like it. And that's why the line doesn't look linear of progress, but every ounce of it matters. Every ounce of it holds a place. Every ounce of it is doing doing something for your soul in your journey. We just have to remember to see it as such, and just know that any slow period, any time where you're feeling like you're going backwards, any rest, recuperation periods, they are all helping you in your journey, and they are helping you to push forward, maybe just at a slower rate, but they are all holding a place in your own evolutionary journey. Okay. So for the affirmation, well, hey, and let me I feel like I'm a little all over the place today. Sorry, guys. I kind of haven't also been meditating, and I feel it's crazy how much more calm and collected my brain is when I meditate. Anyway, that was something that just came into my brain right now. Anyways, outline, or let's go over a summary. Number 1, here are 10 ways to continue on your evolution journey. Okay, number 1, hold and declare and set the intention for a growth mindset. That's our foundation. Number 2 is to stay curious. Make sure you're asking yourself questions with things. Number 3 is to continue learning. Okay, this could be books, this could be courses, this could be going back to school, whatever it looks like for you. Continue to keep learning, because it's going to help with your confidence and your ability to dissect things and critical think way more than you think. Number 4 is to stay open-minded, right, with others' viewpoints, opinions, belief systems. Please, for the love of God, stay open-minded. Number 5, podcasts, mentorships, courses, okay, coaches. Get around other people where you can consume other people's positive, uplifting, inspiring mindsets and ways of life, okay? Number 6 is to get uncomfortable and try new things. Number 7 is to continue setting goals, right? We want to always be continuing to evolve higher, celebrate what you've achieved, but make sure that we're moving that needle down to continue giving us direction and calling us to rise up to meet them. Number 8 is to spend time with yourself, right? Spending time with yourself is where we can find clarity. There's a lot of clarity and downloads in the stillness, a lot of even just contentment, happiness, fulfillment in those quiet moments with yourself. Number 9 is to stay devoted to growth, basically meaning make sure that we're upholding that consistency, but understand that it is a flow at the end of the day. So we're not forcing anything. You can't force growth, but we are going to stay devoted to the path of growth and whatever that comes with it, okay? And lastly, number 10, progress is not linear, or progress is linear, depending on how you want to look at it. But essentially saying that we're always spiraling higher, right? Even if we think that we're learning a lesson again, or we've been here before, it's just another opportunity for us to dig deeper into it. And even these times of stillness, of feeling stale, of feeling stuck, of even moving backwards, they are all always pushing us forward on our journey in some sense, whether that's helping us be more compassionate, relatable, understanding, being humbled. It really is always driving us on our own soul's evolution, even though on paper, the progress line doesn't look like it's moving, okay? So our affirmation for today is, I am devoted to my path of expansion and evolution. I am devoted to my path of evolution and expansion. I love you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. Okay, number 3 in a row. I'm feeling so proud of us. Again, I am going to be traveling for 2 weeks this month. I'm going to try to pre-record, but if not, just know that's where your girl is. We're also working on a new retreat, hopefully coming in November of this year. So please stay tuned for that, because hopefully that is coming soon. Nothing is set in stone just yet, but I just want to put some feelers out there just so you guys can kind of start thinking about it if it's something that you have been wanting to join a Live Fit retreat experience. We're doing our 4th one. Hopefully, again, at the end of this year, we are trying to have a target of November. So just wanted to get the juices flowing in your brain. If that's something you want to be a part of meeting girls your age with similar interests, if you want to travel but you don't have anyone to go with, if you want to see new places, if you want to be adventurous and try something new and get uncomfortable, but and also just dig deeper into yourself as well and practice some mindfulness together. It's really an incredible opportunity. I feel like it seems so scary, but it's honestly really chill. So anyway, I'll definitely keep you guys updated and posted on depending on how things progress. So I'm sending you so much love. Thank you so much for listening. And if you do enjoy the show, it would mean the world if you could either leave a thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching there, or leave a rating and review on either Apple or Spotify. It really helps this podcast grow. So I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm sending you so much love, and hopefully I'll see you in my next episode. Peace out.